AskReddit by RyJJ1. What are the professions that most people think is hard but actually isn't? A lot of office jobs are hard to get, but easy to do. I remember my first office job after a lifetime of service industry and mechanical work. I could not believe how easy it was. I was replacing a guy retiring. He had a full-time job with the appropriate workload. I would be done by mid-Tuesday. My boss didn't care too much. Just do some training. I did do that a bit. But I'd also take like 3-hour lunches. I was bored out of my mind. So I started taking on and asking for more work. I continued with this attitude. I was the hardest working, most productive guy on any team I was on. After a decade or so of this, I noticed that even though I was the one pulling all the weight, I was paid the same and sometimes less than my teammates. Sure, I'd get called out as a rock star, but I'd prefer maybe a bigger bonus percent instead of an award and a coffee mug. A guy I'd call my mentor at the time said, "Bro, take your foot off the gas. Not all the way, but just keep pace with traffic. Hit the gas when the boss is looking." Many times its support is incredibly chill. There were days I did nothing but play around on my phone because I didn't have any tickets. I say many times because some companies will assign you a bunch of busy work to keep you occupied. My buddy was let go because everything is running smooth, so not sure why we need him. It ran smooth because he set it up to run smooth and maintain things. You can guess what happened a few weeks after he was gone. Lol. Sanitation, garbage man, is not the dirty, back-breaking job that it used to be, with very few usually seasonal exceptions. You'd also be surprised at the pay. For a person which drives a truck, that's okay, but the ones who need to manually segregate trash on a tape, it's not so good. Security for sure, but specifically unarmed security. Having worked at a casino and then with a contract company, think Garda World, Allied Universal, etc. The hardest part about my job was the learning phase. Security usually runs like clockwork unless you're in a particularly bad neighborhood, but even then, if you're unarmed, you're just a glorified doorman to keep insurance happy. Even armed security guards don't have it as bad overall, but the responsibility is sometimes more than the average person is willing to take on. I did unarmed security with G4S for a couple of years. It's not difficult, and I had a great location. Honestly, the hard part was dealing with arsehole co-workers who somehow think less of you whenever you are on shift together. Man, we are babysitting, not fighting for freedom over here. No one gives a shit that you were infantry. There are many jobs that this might apply to. I think the difference is that in many of these easy jobs, you only get one mistake. Mistakes can either be catastrophic or fatal. So the tasks may be easy, but you're being paid for vigilance, focus, and the ability to reproduce a task at the same level over and over. To me, that's the difference between easy, low-paying jobs and easy, high-paying jobs. If you mess up, no one dies. So pilots. Ergonomics. My job basically consists of saying that blow on blow is shit if you want your user to know what they are doing. As a former common medic, I can confirm blow on blow is shit. My ex was some kind of business architect engineer who made amazing money. He literally did nothing all day. I know this because he worked from home most of the time and would only go to the office when there was some kind of team bonding activity. His day was PS5 games with his work laptop next to him, and all his team's messages were pretty personal conversations amongst his co-worker friends. I was like, well, I made wrong choices in life, lol. BI architect. That's business intelligence. Basically a guy that creates data warehousing logic for a company to pull up internal reports. Could be super simple, could be super hard, or could require lots of thinking to get a flash of inspiration. Dermatology. Just remember the 6 rules. 1. If it's dry, wet it. 2. If it's wet, dry it. 3. If they're not on steroids, start steroids. 4. If they are on steroids, Take them off. 5. If you don't know what it is, buy a see it. 6. If you do know what it is, buy a see it. Dick simple. And if it's acute, just shotgun the rash with Lotrizone. I'm completely unable to answer this question because I kept finding out jobs were much harder than I hoped they were. I work in finance. Hard to get in, not very hard to do. Finance is so fucking boring, man. It's so repetitive. Same shit every single day. Most jobs are quite easy if you're naturally inclined to doing that type of work. And they're hard if you aren't. My husband works in community relations. He talks about his work as writing a press release or talking with reporters as easy, but that would stress me the fuck out. I am genuinely convinced that most office jobs could be done by 15-year-olds. The hard part about these jobs is getting them, since you're usually competing against 1,000 other people who also want in. The hard part is not the work, it's the office politics. That 15-year would be a lamb to the slaughter. Data analytics. Just be good at SQL, Excel, and have some common sense. I make over 6 figures doing this job and I'm amazed they pay me this much. I'm a plumber RN and hate it and want to go towards a software data job. Always loved math, blah blah, had a 1540 SAT. I want a cush job with 3 times my pay. Any actual rocket scientists here to weigh in on their profession? Rocket scientist here. It's more about being unforgiving than objectively difficult for individual parts of the rocket. 1000 plus little things have to work perfectly, and if only one breaks even a little bit non-catastrophically, payload doesn't reach its intended orbit, and the mission is considered a failure. It isn't sexy work, and it does require some training, but once you're in, you're in. I've seen so many people phone it in. Basically just move the computer mouse enough to keep their status online, but not really produce much. What would you be producing in it? Meanwhile, I'm busting my butt to treat patients and get my documentation done as an occupational therapist and begging for some type of raise. I don't understand how people make so much money doing so little work or easy work. Congrats to y'all, you got it figured out. Notice how no one is listing healthcare jobs. We get the shit kicked out of us for not nearly enough money for the trouble. I work in stroke. You guys do great work for what my words are worth. Corporate management's job seems like it's just throwing wrenches at people below them. The best managers I've seen are the ones that just fuck off and leave you alone. Pretty low bar when doing flat out nothing is considered good. It's a vicious cycle. Usually a manager's reports are not the ones who evaluate the manager, it's their own manager. And very likely their manager is throwing wrenches at them to do some ambiguous task, which forces their hand to throw a wrench down. Realistically, a good manager is someone who can shield their reports from corporate politics, which can get complicated. I know I couldn't do it and I'm happy that my manager does. Brain sturgeon. Most people misunderstand and think they heard brain surgeon, but brain sturgeons just bash the brains out of sturgeons, the fish, which ain't that hard to bash. Same for nuclear fish. Driving big vehicles. It feels like driving any other truck after about a month, and you're just sitting down and listening to whatever you want that whole time. It's pretty great, NGL. My dad's a truck driver. It sounds easy but, not the way he does it. He is never home. He's home when he's off, maybe once a week. He drives 14 hours a day every day pretty much and switches with a co-driver. I'm good LMAO. My stepfather is always telling me that being a pharmacist is incredibly easy, but I just think he's really smart, and anything would be easy for him. The pharmacists I've known were incredibly intelligent people who spend most of their days counting pills. Even they said it was easy and boring, while locums were earning triple figures hourly. Banker, it's basically just playing with money that you can lose. And it's gone. Being in the military. Yeah, doing constant combat missions on a deployment is pretty difficult, but realistically not many people do that. Most of the time is just like any other job out there, only with way more benefits. Show up to work with your friends, mostly do your job with a sprinkle of exercising and other random BS, and then go home and drink with your friends. People always complain about how much the military gets paid, but where else can a kid fresh out of high school who doesn't know his or ass from elbow get a job with equivalent benefits and potential? I had the misfortune of scoring too high on the ASVAB and got funneled into an idiot-proofed career field that I hated from day one, but a lot of that was how mind-numbingly boring it was. I'm a physicist with a PhD, and a high schooler could do 99% of my work. Industrial programming, automation, robots, etc. Learn one and it's copy-paste forever. Maybe at the basic high level. Yes, the concepts are pretty similar. But once you get industry specific and into the nitty-gritty, there is decades worth of knowledge to learn that separate the good from the average. I work in chemical manufacturing automation engineering. We have people that spend very long time specializing in very specific areas of the automation for a reason. Programming, day-to-day support, hardware, electrical, networking, MES integration, instrumentation, optimization can all have dedicated teams because it's often impossible to learn it all over the span of a career. Personal trainer, I am one, but lord it's easy and I even have a master's lol.